Welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Dr. Poonam Gulalia. I am faculty with the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. The paper that is being discussed is titled Fieldwork and Field Supervision. The module that I will be discussing with you now is the second part of the module on content of fieldwork. The content of this module is as follows. I would begin with the objectives with which this module has been written, the organizational context, coming to micromanaging, how you can help reach out to people, to clients who may have to make difficult decisions. What are the factors that would need to be kept in mind for client empowerment? Taking case studies of organizations which are working with children and gathering information from children who are in aftercare homes or in special schools, and then summarizing the module. The objectives with which this module has been designed is as follows. 1. To understand the situations and functionings of an organization, including field action projects, which are a specialization with some of the schools of social work. 2. To understand the client system, target groups, and communities with which the organizations work. And 3. To understand the organizational context in working with people. What is the organizational context, and what do we mean when we use the term organizational context? For ourselves as student learners and in our engagements with individuals in the organizations that we are placed with for fieldwork, we need to see ourselves as worthwhile. When discussing the organizational context, we need to understand, and in our engagements with individuals in organizations and through organizations where we are placed for fieldwork, we need to see ourselves as worthwhile. While physical survival needs are essential for individuals, our psychological and spiritual survival needs depend on whether we have inculcated certain values within ourselves. The term self-esteem therefore refers to the belief about oneself as a person whom you can reach out to, refers also to a client whom you can reach out to, and other target groups who unite with and build the self-esteem by following certain simple guidelines. The guidelines which need to be followed by us in an organizational context are as follows. 1. Help the client understand the meaning of the feeling of personal worth. To help the client understand that one's level of self-esteem is rooted in how we think of ourselves in relation to others. A particular person who is violent and dishonest may have high self-esteem, whereas another person who views himself as generally good human being may have low self-esteem. So how is it helpful for us to understand that self-esteem can be learned from one's own experiences? Certain types of experiences which each one of us have can provide learning opportunities, and you can enable clients to reconsider and re-evaluate their own beliefs about themselves when they approach you for help. You would need to appreciate and would need to impart to the concerned client that you understand that people with low self-esteem often have the habit of campaigning themselves with their best in the respective fields of practice. Moreover, in helping clients to examine their beliefs and assumptions about themselves, you can encourage them to imagine specific conditions if they existed and to help elevate their feeling of self-worth. The fact remains that self-esteem tends to grow from experiences of success and achievements, and therefore you need to play a very proactive role in enabling your clients to achieve success in their need-based approach. You can encourage and help clients develop a sense of purpose and meaning in their lives, and enable them to grow spiritually. There may be circumstances which you may encounter in the field in reaching out to clients where you may need to be part of spaces where your clients are faced with confrontations, challenges, or dilemmas. A challenge or a confrontation essentially refers to a respectful effort to help the client to recognize that he or she is engaged with is self-deception, and whether rationalization revision is required, whether evasive behavior is helpful for more effective functioning, or whether the client needs to adopt some other strategy to address his or her need. This technique helps the client to take a look at the self-defeating attitude or behavior which he or she may have, such as his or her effort to accept an obvious problem. But you would need to keep in mind that there are certain risks involved in adopting a confrontationist approach. Clients who are defensive will tend to reject a message or advice given by you or by your agency staff, by rationalizing it or by verbally attacking you. If you use the technique with a client who is dependent or has his or her own self-esteem at stake, the client may feel criticized and may withdraw from the relationship which he has with you or the agency staff. So there are certain guidelines which you need to consider while using this technique. The guidelines which you would need to consider are as follows. 1. For a challenge to be truly effective, it must be used at a point when the client appears open and ready to hear you and consider the message or the advice which you are giving. 2. You would need to try not to confront or challenge a client when you yourself are feeling angry, exasperated, or frustrated, or when you feel that you are feeling frustrated with the client. Unless you have some genuine concern for the client, confrontation will not help in this situation. Thirdly, the message or the advice which you are trying to give to the client must be presented in a non-judgmental manner. Fourthly, you would need to present the facts or observations on which your message is based and make sure that the clients understand the difference you are trying to make between the facts and the deductions that you have drawn from the facts presented by the client themselves. How then can you help the clients make difficult decisions? Decision making is difficult for a client who is in a crisis, but decision making can be facilitated in the following ways. 1. You can help the client consider their usual approach to decision making. Maybe you can encourage them to think about their earlier dreams or visions they have had previously, which has helped them reach their required goals. 2. You could guide them through a discussion which will help them to make a clear distinction between the problem to be addressed and the options which are available. You could help them distinguish the means from the end. You could also use a decision-making matrix by helping them through the pros and cons of the situation, and thus you could help them to make a decision-making worksheet. It would need to be reiterated here that a crisis is defined as a sudden but temporary breakdown in a person's capacity to cope and function, which could be brought about by some threatening event. Situation might result in a crisis, including the sudden death of a close friend or a relative, the diagnosis of an ailment, the loss of a job, or some other traumatic event. It is important to be able to distinguish between a genuine personal crisis and a life cycle in which one emergency occurs one after another, but with no real or substantial change in how the person or the client behaves, copes, or functions in that particular situation. How then can you further help clients make difficult decisions or decisions which seem difficult to them at the given point in time? As a student social worker, you would need to be able to appreciate the following guidelines when dealing with a person in crisis. 1. An individual who is in crisis are preoccupied with the event which has precipitated based on their own fears and anxiety. 2. They tend to involve others in the helping process, including their own friends, whether immediate or extended family members, their own peers, neighbors, or other support groups. Thirdly, the person in crisis feels that he or she is confronted with a problem which cannot be solved and therefore feels paralyzed to take any action. Fourthly, it is a helpful attitude and a relevant approach which is essential in responding to a problem in crisis. Lastly, if an entire family or several individuals are involved who have experienced the same traumatic event, a group approach or a family therapy approach may be useful. While working towards enabling clients to solve their problems, while working towards enabling clients to discuss their issues, you are working basically towards client empowerment. What does client empowerment mean? The word empowerment implies to invest the other with power or to authorize another to encourage certain power. As a social work strategy, empowerment is a way of working with clients or client groups which assist them to organize and exercise their own competencies and power so that they can improve their own functioning. It also implies a change in attitude and policies which adversely impact their own lives. Again, there are certain guidelines which you could adhere to which could help you in this endeavor. The guidelines which you could adhere to and the factors which you would need to keep in mind for client empowerment are as follows. 1. You need to understand that agencies will enhance the empowerment strategy must believe in shared power and responsibility. Each individual is an extremely important resource to others, and it is through shared responsibility and cooperation that they begin to understand the socio-political and the economic context of the situation. 3. You need to be able to help clients prepare a list that they already possess, including their own motivational strategy to help solve the problem. 4. Encourage your client and assist them to arrange and attend a first meeting and events in such a way so that they can understand the people they are connected with, the organizations they work with, their own workspaces, and the systems they want to influence. 5th, once your client or client group begins to recognize their own true potential, you will be able to assist them to use power in a planned way. Going further in understanding the scope and purpose of client empowerment, you would need to understand that in dealing with conflicting situations, sometimes one needs to mediate on behalf of the client or client group. One is repeatedly using the term client or client group because it could be an individual situation, a group situation, or a community situation. Facilitative mediation is a method whereby a neutral third party who has no authority or decision-making power in the given situation works with both sides and helps them agree to come to terms in settling a given dispute. Mediation then is basically a dialogue between two parties or more than two parties who are in conflict over issues or things related to power, status, values, or access to resources in such cases, in which a social worker as a third party facilitates a balance or a level-headed search for a solution. In individual situations, one has been through some of the examples which can guide you through the process. When working with groups in an agency or in a community, you may need to use various programming activities, including role plays, drama campaigns, puppet shows, or storytelling within social group work program, implying thereby the use of non-verbal communication, media, recreation, and other activities in order to move group processes in desired situations, and also to enable them to create opportunities to learn new skills and experiences to help them build positive relationships. Now I would like to take the example of certain organizations which work with children and where students for fieldwork placements have been undertaken, which have proved to be good learning experiences. When planning for an interview with children in one such organization, you may need to consider the following. 1. You would need to be clear about why you are meeting the given child who is coming to you as a client and what is it that you hope to be accomplished by the meeting. You may need to plan alternative methods to achieve your goals. Second, you would need to conduct an interview with the child in a room or a space that is familiar and comfortable for the given child. If that is not possible, you may need to consider a park or an open space. You may need to conduct an interview in a park or an open space in case a room is not available. You would also need to consider using some form of play to put the child at ease to enable communication. You would need to place yourself at the level of the child physically so that the child is comfortable with the interaction which you're going to have with him or her. Moreover, you would need to be prepared to offer a very simple, honest explanation as to why you need to speak to the child. You might like to begin with some friendly conversation, and if the child refuses to talk or interact, you may need to try engaging the child in a parallel activity and then gradually initiating the conversation. Taking the example of children who are placed either in aftercare homes, in adopted agencies, or in special schools, one would like to highlight certain facts which need to be kept in mind for effective learning. While taking the example of children who may have limited verbal ability, you would need to keep in mind that most of the information you would need to gather would be by observing children's non-verbal behavior during play and social interactions in the given agency setting. Also, you would need to keep in mind that children tend to act out the concerns they have in play and project their concerns and feelings through storytelling. Therefore, children may be between the age of 3 to 6 usually agree to please adults in their own behavior. They may modify what they want to say in order to make it fit with what you want to hear. Young children, moreover, are easily distracted and tend to move quickly from one topic to another. By and large, most children older than 6 years are able to answer simple and age-appropriate questions. So if you need to probe, you may need to ask, what happened next? And followed by, then what did you do? This would need to be followed by questions like, where were you when this happened? And who was with you? By getting answers to some of these questions, you could continue with the discussion which you have initiated. Special techniques like story completion, play, and drawing are sometimes useful when interviewing children who are older or maybe between 7 and 9 years. But many children who are older tend to give thoughtful responses to clear questions which you may ask as a student social worker. Many children of this age group find it easier to talk about personal matters if they can do so while engaged in simple activities which do not require much concentration. All these factors can help you engage with children in given settings that you are placed for fieldwork. If you are placed, say, in a children's home or in a school for children or in an adoption agency, how do you think you will be able to assess the truthfulness of the child's statements? If you and or your paraprofessional at the agency are responsible for investigating certain reports of abuse or neglect or conducting a child's custody evaluation, you may need to be forming an opinion about whether the child is telling the truth. Sometimes you may find that a parent of the child or another adult in the child's life may pressurize the child to lie or deceive or give incomplete information to a social worker to avoid disclosing some problem or criminal activity or the way of hurting another person. How then do you think you will be able to utilize your techniques and skills that you have learned to get to understand the true statement of the child? These are spaces that you would need to explore with the paraprofessionals and your supervisors. And some questions remain unanswered, but these are spaces which are being told to you to discuss further and to dwell on. Reflective practice holds a great meaning for you when you discuss these issues and learn from other co-workers. I would move ahead here to speak of certain field action projects which certain departments and schools of social work have undertaken to enhance student learning and to reach out to community needs. Here you will begin to understand that these projects have been initiated with the marginalized populations and have also been used for teaching learning experiences. Field action projects are basically used as field-based learning spaces for students in the concurrent fieldwork program and also during the block fieldwork program. The value of these projects lies in the fact that they demonstrate the efficacy of the profession and also help provide quality fieldwork training to students. One project which has been initiated for more than 2 decades now is known as the Integrated Rural Health Development Program. This has primarily adopted a preventive health and health promotion framework and works on multiple domains to help achieve the well-being of people in the community. It is through this field action project that the team works with individuals related to their own beliefs and attitudes, related to the health-seeking behavior, and also to the enhancement of their knowledge and awareness. Regarding community engagement in this project, the effort is to organize periodic community meetings, help create awareness through street plays on various communicable and non-communicable diseases, undertake disability identification camps, and also engage with individual counseling as and when necessary. As a part of this program, the paraprofessionals have helped undertake capacity building of primary healthcare doctors and Anganwadi teachers besides ASHA workers to build bridges between the students, the community, and the paraprofessionals. With reference to the community engagements, the work undertaken is with population subgroups. For example, they work with women's groups, children's groups, and adolescents. Besides, as an integral part of the project, the Village Health Committee periodically documents and reports to Tehsil Health Office, and also demands the essential changes in the local health system as and when required. The social workers who work with the Village Health Committee help provide inputs to the committee for review and betterment of the work undertaken, and also to influence policy decisions. The other field action project which is being referred to here is Preyas. Preyas is a social work demonstration project of the Center for Criminology and Justice, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, which was established in 1990. The focus with which this project was initiated was on service delivery, networking, training, and later on it expanded to research and documentation and policy change. This project was initiated so that it could cater to the needs of custodial and institutional rights and rehabilitation of the socio-economically vulnerable individuals and groups. The third field action project which is being referred to here and which needs a little discussion is titled Koshish. Koshish is another field action project which has various locations in Mumbai, Delhi and Patna. It was initiated as a field action project way back in 2006 when the primary objective of repealing the beggary prevention law failed to recognize the circumstances which forced people towards destitution. Koshish aims to humanize existing institutions under the beggary prevention law and work towards the rehabilitation of custodial populations which continue to live in homes. It has also helped create policies and programs for the homeless population and those who live at the margins of society. It was begun as a student initiative and has helped to develop a comprehensive intervention influencing critical policy decisions. It has successfully advocated with the state and central governments for the repeal of the legislation and in formulating new legislations which has helped community-based non-custodial framework. Some of the key features of this project are creation of MySpace, which is an experimental process facilitating a free and secure environment within custodial institutions. Second, counseling, life skills training and capacity building of clients. Third, mental health intervention with residents through individual and group sessions and referrals. Fourth, medical intervention. Fifth, home programs to contact and trace families and help them reunite. Sixth, undertaking institution placement programs to facilitate vocational skill training and also recreational activities within institutions to help create an environment which is conducive to rehabilitation. The impact of all these sustained effects and efforts has helped Koshish to occupy a very significant position in the policy space and in the context of homelessness and destitution. All these examples which have been touched upon and about which you can read in detail will help you provide immense learning opportunities and enable you to contribute and grow as professionals. To summarize this module, you would understand that by giving you case study examples and by explaining to you in detail, you have been able to get an understanding of the organizational context and the field context. References from several field action projects will help you to understand its value for student learning. I would also like to request you to read the e-text and the references which have been made available, including the web links, to enable you to understand this module better. I do hope that you have been able to understand what has been presented to you, and I look forward to further discussion with you in this context. Thank you very much.